The auctioneer's voice rolled through the grand chamber like chilled smoke, smooth and poisonous. Every syllable echoed off the polished stone walls of the Auric Spire, a sound engineered to make suffering feel elegant. Lot 001. 7 billion sentients. Fully documented. Condition mixed. Provenance. Debt failures, border conflicts, political reclamations. The hollow field above the pit shimmered, rotating sheets of data, lifespan charts, labor output graphs, projected revenue streams. To the hundreds of alien dignitaries below, it was nothing more than numbers. Potential, profit, assets. To the humans watching from the silent concourse high above, it was the worst in the galaxy had normalized. Envoy Lyra Sunam stood with her hands clasped tightly, a practiced posture to hide the tremble running through her arms. Her gaze moved over the rising figures in the hollow field, but her mind filled the empty spaces with faces. Children pulled from their homes, families separated under steel lights, hands bound behind backs until muscle memory accepted pain. Beside her, Admiral Corin Hallberg stood stiff and silent. His expression was carved from granite, military control in its purest form. Only the tightening at the edge of his jaw betrayed him. 7 billion. He had seen numbers like that only in nightmare scenarios, planetary casualty projections, extinction models, theoretical doomsday exercises no one believed would ever happen. But these weren't theoretical. These were people. Further down the concourse, Tavi Okiye stood unmoving, a thin neural band flickering faint blue across her temples. Her eyes remained unfocused, turned inward. Streams of economic data rushed through her mind. Credit liquidity, market tolerance curves, long-range speculation cycles. She surfed them like a sailor riding the crest of a storm, never looking down into the water she knew would swallow her whole. Because if she looked at the faces and the projections, she wouldn't be able to. What Tavi was about to say next. He knew what Atlas was about to calculate. He knew what humanity was about to decide. And it was a decision no species had ever made before. The first bid wasn't the danger. The danger was that humans were about to answer it. The first bid concluded with a triumphant flare of alien pride. The Ari Dominion had opened the slaughter. Their auction number glowed like a burning brand above the pit. To them, it was a declaration. Humans don't matter. Their people belong to us. The chamber applauded in a quiet storm of chittering mandibles and vibrating crest plates. 7 billion souls. Just another financial maneuver. Up in the human concourse, Tavi Okoye's breath caught. The neural band flashed bright, alerting her of Atlas calculations spinning into overdrive. Numbers confirm, she whispered. The Ari bid is designed to crush any challengers early. If we stay quiet now, the auction ends before we ever begin. Silence. Hard silence. Lyra Sunam's expression never changed, but the skin over her knuckles whitened as her fists locked. Admiral Hallberg broke the silence first, voice a low growl. Tavi, what's our opening move? Her pupils constricted. Atlas recommends a counter-bid. Not to win, to disrupt. Force the predators to bleed money, to respect us. Hallberg gave one short nod, then authorize it. Tavi inhaled sharply and allowed Atlas to speak through her. The hollow field shook. A new symbol flickered into existence. Terran reciprocity accord bid submitted. The price humanity offered thundered through the chamber. Alien gazes snapped upward as one. Some laughed. Some hissed in annoyance. One Threxel corporate lord flicked metallic wings in irritation. But others, the cunning ones, stared with a different expression. Concern. Humans, acta general mutarat. How many worlds do they even own? How many systems? Who do they think they are? A new species without scars. A Kuthar war champion spat. What Tavi was about to say next. He knew what Atlas was about to calculate. He knew what humanity was about to decide. And it was a decision no species had ever made before. The first bid wasn't the danger. The danger was that humans were about to answer it. The first bid concluded with a triumphant flare of alien pride. The Ari Dominion had opened the slaughter. Their auction number glowed like a burning brand above the pit. To them, It was a declaration. Humans don't matter. Their people belong to us. The chamber applauded in a quiet storm of chittering mandibles and vibrating crest plates. 7 billion souls. Just another financial maneuver. Up in a human concourse, Tavi Okoye's breath caught. The neural band flashed bright, alerting her of Atlas calculations spinning into overdrive. Numbers confirm, she whispered. The Ari bid is designed to crush any challengers early. If we stay quiet now, the auction ends before we ever begin. Silence. Hard silence. Lyra Sunam's expression never changed, but the skin over her knuckles whitened as her fists locked. Admiral Hallberg broke the silence first, voice a low growl. Tavi, what's our opening move? Her pupils constricted. Atlas recommends a counter-bid. Not to win, to disrupt. Force the predators to bleed money, to respect us. Hallberg gave one short nod, then authorize it. Tavi inhaled sharply and allowed Atlas to speak through her. The hollow field shook. A new symbol flickered into existence. Terran reciprocity accord bid submitted. The price humanity offered thundered through the chamber. Alien gazes snapped upward as one. Some laughed. Some hissed in annoyance. One Threxel corporate lord flicked metallic wings in irritation. But others, the cunning ones, stared with a different expression. Concern. Humans, acta general mutarat. How many worlds do they even own? How many systems? Who do they think they are? A new species without scars. A Kuthar war champion spat. They will learn. They will learn. Down on the floor, the Ari Dominion Lord's bioluminescent markings flared in angry crimson. He raised his chin, signaling without words. Outbid them. Break them quickly. The next number lit the chamber, arrogant and vast. Tavi's breath hitched. Her fingers twitched, muscles wanting to curl in defense. Lyra leaned in slightly. Atlas. It models escalation, Tavi answered. This will get worse. Much worse. Hallberg's jaw tightened. Good. Let them show their true colors. Bids stacked like strikes of a hammer against an anvil. Each number heavier than the last. Alien wealth surged. Aggressive, merciless. Humanity answered every time. Each counterbid was like a pulse of defiance through the chamber. Impossible, a Threxel director murmured. They're bluffing. They can't have that much capital. They'll bankrupt themselves for nothing. But the Terran insignia stayed, and the numbers kept climbing. Behind the confidence, however, Tavi felt the edges of chaos. Atlas risks grew with every counter. Collateral damage probabilities spiked. One wrong move could collapse entire sectors. Her heart hammered, as if she were standing at the edge of an abyss. Lira notijit. If we stop now, what is the outcome? Tavi's eyes turned glassy as the projection ran. The Ari will win the lot. Humanity will be banned from any moral interference ever again. And the fate of 7 billion. Tavi hesitated, but only once. They disappear. The words sliced Hallberg like a blade. He had spent a lifetime preparing for war, but not this kind. Not a war fought with contracts, with money, with moral force. Then we don't stop, he said. Below them, the bidding war slowed. Not because the stakes dropped, but because every remaining empire realized something horrifying. Humans wouldn't quit. They weren't playing the game. They were breaking it. Frustration grew. Whispers seethed. Some questioned whether slaves even deserved such value. Then, a new figure appeared on the hollow field. It spiked higher than any bid yet. Silence slammed into the chamber like a vacuum. Gasps. Shouts. A crash of disbelief. Even Tavi staggered, one hand catching a railing, as the neural band flashed warning orange. Alice didn't authorize that, she snapped. Hallberg turned sharply. Then who? Lyra's voice cut through, low and cold as winter. The Quather, a rival empire, proud and war-hardened, slammed their challenge down like a declaration of blood debt. Ari lords leapt to respond. Trixal financier snarled. The entire chamber erupted. The auction had mutated from transaction into the battlefield. Tavi's whispers were nearly a panic. Atlas can't match that without crossing red lines, catastrophic risk thresholds. We'd lose everything. Hallberg didn't look at her. He stared down into the pit like a man sighting a target across a battlefield. "Show me," he commanded. "All outcomes." Numbers reshaped the air around him. Probabilities, dangers, future costs. Atlas spat out warnings. Mass global recession risk, high. Future generations burdened, extreme. Humanity becomes the enemy of half the galaxy. Certain? Tavi whispered, "We don't have to make a choice." Lyra completed it. "We have to make the right one." Hallberg's lungs burned with the weight of every life the galaxy wanted to price. He raised his hand and pointed downward. "Bid. The next number humanity speaks might destroy them before the war even begins." The moment Admiral Hallberg raised his hand, the entire Terran delegation froze, as if time paused just long enough for doubt to breathe. Tavi's pulse pounded in her ears. She could feel Atlas straining inside the neural band, churning probabilities, screaming warnings in silent data. "Corn," she whispered, "if we push past this threshold." "We already crossed the threshold," Hallberg replied quietly. The words sounded like a verdict. He gave the authorization. The hollow field shattered back into motion. Terran reciprocation accord. New bid registered. It was colossal. It was irrational. It was everything humanity had left, and more. Gasps surged through the chamber like an electrical storm. Even the mediator's glowing sigils flickered in visible surprise. The Ari Dominion Lord's face twisted into an expression that didn't belong on a noble. Raw panic. The sudden shift in power dynamics slapped them like a shockwave. "Impossible," someone hissed from the lower tiers. "No emerging power has that kind of wealth. They can't cover it. This is a bluff." They wanted to believe it. They needed to believe it. Because if they didn't, everything they thought they controlled was now slipping into human hands. Admiral Hallberg didn't look away from the pit. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. "This isn't about money," he murmured. "It's about message. Lira no slowly. They put a price on the worth of our people. We'll show them the cost of underestimating humanity." Tavi felt a heaviness pressing down her spine. Not fear, but the gravity of consequences. "Atlas projects immediate economic collapse if they call our bluff," she said. "Debt spirals. Sanction. Resource blockades. The entire Terran sphere becomes a target." Hallberg responded without hesitation. "If humanity must suffer to free itself, then let suffering begin on our terms." Tavi turned toward him, shock in her eyes. "You would doom billions more?" "No," he said. "I would save billions first." His gaze cut back downward. "And then fight." The alien empire scrambled. They called emergency calculations. Corporate lords screamed into comm channels. Governments triggered crisis protocols mid-auction. They had never faced an opponent willing to go all in. Not for profit, not for power, but for people. Empires dealt in assets and margins. Humans dealt in loyalty and rage. The mediator opened their fronds again, voice trembling beneath the perfect veneer of neutrality. "Are there any new counter?" Before they could finish, the Quather champion slammed his bid down, a roar echoing through the hall. The number was violent, a statement carved from pure hatred. His command voice thundered. "Humans bra rebellion." They corrupt order. They are unfit to govern themselves, much less the future. Immediately, the Ari piled on, pushing the price further. The Threxel joined in, not out of interest in humans, but out of fear of Terran ambition. Every alien house united under a single shared goal. Make humans lose. The noise grew loud enough to rattle the air. Holoscreens trembled with rapidly shifting currency figures. It was a war of numbers, each digit a bullet. Tavi winced, gripping the railing again. Atlas fed her catastrophic projections faster than her mind could process. Economic shockwaves cascaded through potential futures, collapse, invasion, genocide. "This isn't sustainable," she hissed. "If we escalate again, we risk total financial annihilation." Lyra's voice was steady. "We risk annihilation if we don't." The auctioneer slammed his staff to demand order. Final call for counter bids. Silence. Heavy. Waiting. Humans had one last chance to step back, to accept defeat and survive. Atlas placed the final projection before them. All Terran assets leveraged. Total debt burden extended over generations. Earth becomes a fortress in hostile space. Va probability guaranteed. Atlas added a final line. Recommendation, withdraw. Tavi's voice cracked. We can't do this. We're mortgaging the future. Our children will. Hallberg placed a hand on her shoulder. Firm, human, grounding her in something beyond numbers. Our children, he said, deserve a universe where humans do not wear chains. He turned to Lyra. Envoy. Confirm authority. Lyra didn't hesitate. Confirmed. Hallberg raised his hand one last time. Tavi shut her eyes, as if hoping the universe might blink and take the responsibility away. But it didn't. Terran reciprocation accord. Final bid confirmed. The chamber fell dead silent. Every empire stared. Humanity had just bet everything, not on survival, but on dignity. The mediator's lights pulsed bright. They opened their mouth to declare the winner, and the chamber doors exploded. Shrapnel tore through the air as a deep metallic roar shook the foundations. Soldiers stormed in, weapons raised, insignias unfamiliar. A voice boomed across the spire. Seize the Terran delegation. Do not let them speak another word. Someone in the galaxy would rather start a war than let humans save their own. The blast wave rolled across the auction chamber like thunder, trapped inside metal lungs. Lights flickered. Hollow displays stuttered and warped. Smoke churned into the domed ceiling as panic shrieks rippled through the alien elite. The first strike wasn't aimed at the bidding floor. It was aimed at the Terran concourse. Lyra Sunam reacted before fear could take shape. She shoved Tavi behind a hardened barrier as Admiral Hallberg drew his pistol in one fluid motion, sighting down at the armored intruders pouring through the shattered entrance. Their armor gleamed with Sovereign Coalition insignia, a coalition known for policing the galactic economy with ruthless efficiency. And this was economics enforced with gunfire. A rifle beam lanced through the air, silent, precise, punching into the railing inches from Hallberg's head. Molten metal sprayed outward. Stay down, he barked. The coalition commander, a towering insectoid wrapped in matte alloy plating, strode into the chaos, voice booming. Terrans have breached economic doctrine. Detain them before the transaction certifies. Hallberg gritted his teeth. Economic doctrine. That was the excuse for a kidnapping. His sidearm hummed and barked a plasma round, the shot slamming into a soldier's shoulder plate, knocking the attacker into a row of seats. Panic spread like fire among the upper tiers as dignitaries fled toward exits guarded by their own private militias. It was no longer an auction. It was a battleground. Tavi's neural band crackled with interference, algorithms protesting the madness. The coalition's moving to void the auction, she gasped. If they arrest us before certification, then we lose, Hallberg finished. They'd disperse our people before we could ever locate them again. He fired again, center mass, dropping another attacker. Sparks screamed from impact points, the air sour with scorched circuitry. He turned to Lyra. Options. Her mind raced, diplomatic pathways, emergency codes, treaty loopholes. None applied here. But there was one truth. There are no rules anymore. She pulled a compact emitter from her belt, slapping it against the railing. With a flicker of blue, a personal shield canopy flared alive, deflecting incoming fire. Tavi peeked over the barrier, horror widening her eyes. They're targeting the mediator too. If neutral authority falls, the auction's legitimacy collapses. Sure enough, coalition troopers advanced on the floating arbiter, weapons leveled. The mediator's soft fronds jittered with panic, their glow unstable. Help ME, they cried, but the dignitaries who once revered protocol now trampled it in fear. A coalition gunship, a hovering wedge of armored doom, thrust through a docking breach. Its floodlights searched for the Terrans like a predator hunting warm blood. Hallberg checked his ammo. One magazine half spent. Not enough. Fall back to the auxiliary comm station, he ordered. We get the bid certified, then we escape. Certification requires beneficiary acknowledgement. Tavi shouted over the storm of weapons fire. 7 billion humans have to be formally transferred. Lyra's voice sharpened. Then we reach the signing dais. Hallberg nodded once, a soldier's acceptance of impossible odds. They moved, sprinting through the chaos, ducking behind broken marble and overturned seats. Plasma fire scorched trails along their path, every shot a near-death reminder. Below, the alien elites watched the spectacle with conflicting hunger, scandal, fear, and cruel delight blending into a riot of color and sound. To them, humans were entertainment. To Tavi, the stakes were everything. As they reached the mid-tier stair, a coalition strike drone swooped low, cannons locking onto them with a shrill targeting whine. Hallberg leapt between the drone and his team, shield device snapping open. Energy blasts hammered the barrier, each strike trembling through his bones. "Keep moving," he grunted through clenched teeth. Lyra dragged Tavi ahead. The neural band sparked dangerously, overclocking with too many catastrophic projections to process. "I can't calculate this," Tavi breathed. "The futures are breaking." "You don't need to predict the future," Lyra said. "You just need to help us make one." The shield flickered. One more shot would tear it apart. Hallberg roared, firing 3 quick bursts into the drone's sensor cluster. Electricity spat in a violent arc as the machine spiraled away, crashing in a ball of bright plasma. The Admiral's shield shattered, pieces of crackling energy splintering out like broken glass. He staggered, but he stayed upright. Tavi grabbed his arm. "Corin, I'm fine," he lied. They were almost to the dais, the certification, altar glowing with faint legal sigils. The key to legitimizing their impossible bid. One tap, one confirmation, 7 billion saved. Just one. The floor beneath them detonated. Shockwaves launched the trio into the air, their bodies slamming into a fractured column. Dust and pain swallowed the world in blinding white. Hallberg blinked through the haze, ears ringing. Shapes emerged through smoke. Coalition soldiers. Guns raised. No more chances. The commander stepped forward, mandibles clicking in cold triumph. "You spent everything you are," he said. "Now you'll pay the rest." His clawed hand lifted, signaling execution. Tavi reached toward the dais, fingers trembling inches away. So close. Then a new sound sliced through the smoke. A human gunship's engines. Roaring. Reinforcements have arrived, but whose orders do they follow? The chamber rumbled as the engine screamed, a deep bass roar that shook banners loose and rattled bones. The smoke parted just enough to reveal a silhouette hovering like a mechanical hawk in the chaos. Sleek Terran alloy plating, angular wings lined with defensive emitters, a Terran Valkyrie-class assault craft. The Coalition commander flinched. "Impossible," he hissed. "Your fleet was denied orbit permissions." The craft's belly doors yawned open, shapes descending fast on mag lines. Terran Marines, matte armor, glowing tactical visors, rifles charged with uncompromising intent. Their boots hit the marble with a thunderous rhythm. Admiral Hallberg didn't smile, but something in his eyes lit like a fuse. "Change of plans, Commander," he said hoarsely. "Humans aren't leaving quietly." Coalition troops shifted formation, but they were too slow. The first volley of Terran plasma fire burned through their front line, scattering them in screaming disarray. The Marines formed a tight defensive ring around Hallberg, Lyra, and Tavi. A Marine captain, armor etched with service sigils, saluted sharply. "Admiral, Phoenix Squad. Reporting. Evac route secured." "But sir," he hesitated, visor flicking toward the pit. "They're saying the bid is still active." Hallberg nodded once. "We certify, then run." The captain's visor dimmed in worry. "Sir, with respect, Coalition reinforcements are converging. If they seal the airlocks, then we make a new door," Hallberg snapped. "Hold the perimeter." The Marines surged forward, shields locking as more Coalition forces stormed in from secondary entryways. The air crackled with crossfire, sizzling light and thunder merging into a hellish storm. Lyra pulled Tavi back on her feet. You are the key now. Atlas needs your confirmation. No one else can authorize the transfer. Tavi swallowed. Hard. The neural band pulsed violently, overloaded from trying to outthink a war. I can barely stand, she whispered. You don't have to stand, Lyra said, gripping her shoulder. You just have to try. They staggered toward the glowing dais, a platform of legal finality, every sigil humming with power and protocol. The mediator, battered and terrified, hovered nearby, fronds quivering. Why you must confirm before the auction system enters lockdown, they cried. No certification, no transfer. Tavi nodded, though her knees wobbled like paper. She reached out, fingers brushing glowing runes that rippled like water. Atlas' voice channeled through her mind, urgent. Ownership transfer will initiate complete socio-legal restructuring. Terran economic collapse forecast, confirmed. Probability of foreign invasions, 97%. Proceed? Her breath trembled. The price wasn't just credits. It was the future. Do it, Lyra said softly. Tavi looked at Hallberg, the man who had chosen dignity over comfort. He nodded, and she pressed her palm down. The dais erupted in light. Sigils from ancient legal foundations flared across the chamber, illuminating every witness, every face, every monster who thought slavery could last forever without consequence. The mediator spoke, voice booming with amplified power. By certified authority, ownership of Lot 001 is transferred to Terran Reciprocation Accord. The 7 billion humans are hereby liberated by purchase. The words echoed like a verdict from the universe itself. Hallberg's heart clenched, not in fear this time, but in awe. Humanity did it. They had freed their own, against every impossible barrier. The deed was sealed, and then something worse than weapons happened. Every alien device, every wristband, datapad, command screen, flickered with a new notification. Outstanding balance. Terran Reciprocation Accord. 7 billion sentient purchase liability. Payment required immediately. A roar of panic exploded from the crowd. This wasn't victory. This was a trigger. Banks, empires, militaries, every power in the galaxy suddenly realized humanity had just become the most valuable bounty in existence. Coalition soldiers renewed their assault with desperation. Killing the Terrans wasn't just revenge. It was financial salvation. The Coalition commander shrieked, mandibles vibrating. Kill them now. If the buyers die, the sale collapses. Tavi swayed, drained, and nearly crumpled. Lyra caught her just as Hallberg raised his weapon once more. He turned to his marines. You heard him, Hallberg growled. If we fall here, 7 billion fall with us. The marine captain's visor flared with combat intent. Then we don't fall. But before they could retreat, the chamber's central hollow tower erupted again, hijacked by a new transmission. A shadowed figure appeared. Tall, cloaked, eyes burning with cold purpose. A voice filled every corner of the hall. Terrans, you have made yourselves the debtors of the galaxy. The figure leaned forward, a predator savoring its meal. And I will own what comes next. The transmission cut. Every door sealed shut. Hallberg's pulse hammered. Who the hell was that? Lyra's voice cracked with dread. Whoever they are, they just declared war on humanity's future. Now that humanity has won, the galaxy will do anything to make them lose. All across the spire, the sound shifted. Fear was loud, but desperation? That was a roar. Every alien faction had just realized the same terrible truth. If the Terrans die before the payment clears, the transaction collapses. 7 billion slaves become repossessed assets, and the galaxy would reset its chains without hesitation. Coalition forces surged, fueled by panic and greed. Admiral, the Marine captain shouted, firing a burst to suppress advancing soldiers. They're converging from every deck. Extraction points are compromised. Hallberg swapped magazines, teeth gritted. We find a new route. Tavi, pale and trembling, forced her mind back into processing. Atlas says the only viable exit path is through the East Transit Rotunda, but it's a 6-level descent under hostile control. Then that's where we go, Lyra said without hesitation. Amid the firefight, the mediator drifted toward the Terrans, their shimmering aura dimmed to a frightened flicker. You must protect the purchase contract, they begged. If the Overseer nullifies the sale, we won't let that happen, Lyra promised, an oath sharper than any blade. The Marines formed a moving barricade as the group retreated up a shattered stairway. Rifle bursts flashed like lightning against the cold dark armor of the coalition forces. A Marine took a hit to the chest plate, collapsing with a grunt. 2 more pulled him up without breaking formation. Every step forward was paid in plasma and blood. Tavi clutched the contract module to her chest like a beating heart, each tremor of combat making her flinch. Hallberg noticed the terror in her eyes. "You okay?" he asked, voice clipped. "No," she admitted, breathing ragged. "But I'm here." He nodded. "That's enough." On the 3rd-tier landing, the path abruptly split in 2, twisting across columns and shadowed atriums where auction spectators once sipped rare vintages while appraising misery. Now the opulence lay splintered. Chandeliers crashed into marble, sculptures shattered under boot and blast. The captain checked the tactical map. Left route is clear, but out in the open, sniper lanes everywhere. "Right?" Hallberg asked. The captain's visor dimmed. "Choke points. Ambush city." "We take the right," Hallberg decided. Lyra's eyebrows lifted. "We choose the ambush." "We're humans," Hallberg said. "We turn traps into graves." They slipped into the right corridor, lights flickering, walls tight enough to amplify every footstep. Tavi whispered, "Atlas predicts multiple hostiles waiting." Hallberg nodded. "Good. Let them wait." They advanced, slow, silent. Motion blur. A plasma blade swept from above. A Marine blocked the strike with his rifle, sparks screaming across the narrow hall. 3 armored attackers dropped from hidden alcoves, mandibles gnashing. The corridor exploded into close-quarter violence, fists, short blades, point-blank blasts. The sound was savage and bone-wet as combat slammed against metal walls. One attacker lunged past the Marines, heading straight for Tavi. Hallberg threw himself into the path, the blade glancing off his armor, searing a molten groove across his chest. He didn't flinch. He tackled the alien, slamming them into the opposite wall. The impact cracked both armor and bone. The alien hissed, weapon raised for a killing strike. Lyra fired point-blank. The attacker crumpled. "Never touch a Terran economist," she snarled. When the last enemy dropped, the Marines resumed formation, bruised but unbroken. They reached the rotunda entrance, 2 massive blast doors sealed by lockdown protocol. The captain cursed. "We'll never burn through in time." "Atlas," Tavi whispered, shakily. The neural band buzzed weakly, overtaxed, overheating. But it answered. Manual override available via Central Spire Nexus. Location, opposite direction. Distance, 900 meters under hostile occupation. Hallberg ran a thumb across the scorch mark on his armor. "Then we go back into the fire." But before they could pivot, a hologram ignited in the air. The cloaked figure returned. "You are surrounded," the voice purred. "The galaxy cannot afford your sentimentality. Surrender, and I will ensure your species remains useful." The Marines raised their weapons. Hallberg stepped forward, eyes blazing. "You don't speak for the galaxy." The figure tilted their head. "No, I speak for the ones who own it." The hologram expanded, showing fleet after fleet mobilizing beyond the stars. A noose tightening. "If humanity refuses to be property," the voice said, "then humanity will become an example." The image died. Tavi staggered back, throat tight with dread. "That," she struggled for words. "That was a war declaration." Hallberg looked down at the rotunda, fists clenching. "Then we answer." Lyra stared at him. "With what fleet? What allies?" He turned toward her, a slow, fierce fire growing behind his eyes. "With the 7 billion we just bought back." His voice cut through fear like steel. "We aren't escaping. We're rallying." But before anyone could react, A seismic blast rocked the corridor. The blast doors began to melt from the outside. Tavi stared, breath frozen. Someone's cutting through. The Marines tightened formation. Weapons raised. The molten metal peeled back. And what stood behind the breach? Wasn't coalition. Wasn't hostile. It was a human wearing liberation colors, holding out a hand. "Come with me," he said, "if you want to save the rest." Who just broke through? And what does humanity's secret resistance truly know? All across the spire, the sound shifted. Fear was loud, but desperation? That was a roar. Every alien faction had just realized the same terrible truth. If the Terrans die before the